It's quite humbling to meet all of these beautiful people. Thank you, wherever you are, for continuing to listen to us. We do our best every morning to bring you the facts and figures as we find them, and the relevant information that we dig up for you. We believe that is absolutely necessary to help you make the decisions that you have to make.
And there's a lot of relevant information on the front pages this morning.
Absolutely. Let me start with the Finder newspaper front page stories. NIA registered 5.9 million Ghanaians, 5.1 cars printed and 3.3 issued as at 2019, the end of 2019. First Atlantic Bank donates classroom block to school for the deaf. Hot commissioning of new ambulances. That's the ambulance service that is asking the president to inadequate tractors affecting agri productivity in northern regions. That's farmers saying.
Let's go to the Ghanaian Times newspaper. Let's combat corruption together, the vice president says. OSP to criminalize unexplained wealth. This is a conversation that we've been having for a while, Malik, about how persons should be able to justify their wealth. I think Martin Kebu really mentioned it when he was talking about how government officials should come and justify the assets they made or they gained during their time in office.
And he points out that we have done this before. Under some of the military regimes, we had committees that would invite persons who have served in government to prove why they own certain properties and to provide evidence that they owned those properties out of legitimate earnings.
But the reason why this will be key, and of course it's best international practice, a lot of jurisdictions practice this, is that you don't need to wait till the person is out of office. As soon as the person buys a car or builds a house, the person can be approached to ask, even if it's for tax reasons.
Particularly when you have a strange asset declaration regime where the assets are declared and you will not know what is contained in the declaration forms until an issue comes up. So this is progress only if we will make it work. My next paper is the Daily Statesman. BNI and National Security chase corrupt NIA officials. Let's take money out of politics. That's President John Dramani Mahama cautioning. And election 2020 should not break us, says Methodist Supremo.
I know why you stopped me in the middle of my reviewing what's on the front page of the Ghanaian Times newspaper, Malik. Because on the back page it says Mediama Thrash hats to go on top.
That makes me happy.
Mediama Sporting Club has
makes me happy.
Has beat Accra Hearts. Oh yeah, Kotoko man.
Yes, that makes me happy.
Yes. So it was a good win against the Gun Cities FC on
Friday.
Friday.
After all the noise.
Yes, but you know, Mediama is my hometown too. Yeah, so they are my people. Ediana Stars Sink Oli. If you want to know how they stand, check the back page of the Ghanaian Times newspaper. Let me quickly bring you what's on the front page of the Daily Guide. 200,000 Ghana cedis burnt in explosion. Tiwa leaves CID, and that's COP Mamiya Tiwa Ajodankwa, who was the boss of the CID. There's been a recent reshuffle, and she's been moved. Mahama leads attack on the Electoral Commission. Confusion over men's gold cash, and woman shot dead in Kumasi Hotel.
But last paper, Daniel, is the Daily Graphic. Jampo Butako exonerated but faced disciplinary committee. There's a somber looking photograph of Professor Ransford Jampo on the front page of the Daily Graphic. Asante Hene receives Pillar of Peace Award. Bank of Ghana authorizes issuance of commemorative coins to celebrate him, and issue Euro bonds to salvage city. That's economists advising government ahead of Constitution Day. Engage schools, communities. That's experts advocating. Back page of the Daily Graphic. Mubarak powers Ash Gold to victory. Adriana strike late to beat Olympics. Those are the stories here.
My last paper is the Economy Times, and it says banks make more profits. It has a picture of a smiling Al-Hassan Andani, MD of Stanbic Bank. The caption says Haruna Idrisu.
Oh!
Which made me stop there for a second. Fuel prices to be increased in January pricing window, industry analyst says there, and private sector attracts higher credit. Dr. Yao Edu Jemfi, president of the AGI, no mistake there. Back page, BOG to auction $715 million forex this year. Pensioners to get more money, SNIT speaking, and banking sector assets grow.
Let's go back to the Daily Statesman newspaper front page, which has a story. Let's take money out of politics, and attributing the story to former President John Dramani Mahama, who is a presidential candidate of the opposition National Democratic Congress. Now, Mr. Mahama was speaking at the 38th anniversary of the 31st December Revolution, where he says that A lot of people are losing faith in our politics because there is increasing monetization of the country's politics, which he says portends a looming danger for the country's democracy. He believes that the over-reliance on money in politics has led to an unfortunate situation where people are now directly demanding money in exchange for their votes. This, he believes, can undermine the country's democracy, and persons engaged in politics must move away from this kind of conduct where they have to spread money in order to win votes. This is what Mr. Mahama was saying at the Winneba Park, where the 38th anniversary of the 31st December revolution was celebrated. And we know that the celebration itself asks a number of people, chief amongst them Professor Stephen Kwaku Asare, who says that he does not think that toppling a constitution should be celebrated by anybody. Nonetheless, this has formed part of the National Democratic Congress actually in the constitution, and this celebration happened at the Winneba Park and they were celebrating the 38th anniversary, where Mr. Mahama and some key members of the NDC were present. Former President Rawlings himself delivered a speech there which made headlines.
Now, there's an interesting story on the front page of the Daily Guide, Malik, that I'll bring to you. It's on page 3 actually. It's by Melvin Talu and Jamila Akwele Okechuri. It says that the former President John Mahama appears to have backtracked on his call on political parties not to attack the Electoral Commission. So they go back to when he was president and they bring up this quote that some parties had made it a penchant to continuously attack the Electoral Commission for reasons he could not understand. He said at the time, this is the time where we need to give the Electoral Commission peace to do its work. Every little thing they are as the Electoral Commission, and they are attacking the commission. This was in a run-up to the December 7, 2016 election. He was describing the opposition. So they draw this link to the fact that the NDC will today hold a news conference protesting against the EC's decision to set up a new voter register, and then they go ahead to give the justification that the Electoral Commission themselves have given for the new voter register. There's a quote here attributed to Samuel Tete, who is the deputy chairperson of the commission in charge of operations. He says, using such a periodic replacement register for subsequent elections would greatly affect the credibility of said election or elections. He says that he highlighted that the commission has always procured election materials based on the number of registered voters, and it has caused a lot of waste as the number of registered voters exceeds the actual number of voters.
Daniel, I don't know if his previous comments or calls for support for the Electoral Commission and refraining from criticizing or overly criticizing the Electoral Commission precludes him from criticizing them if he believes that there's a basis for it. But Daniel, we have to remember that that is consistent with tradition and practice in this country. Opposition parties almost always criticize the Electoral Commission. The governing parties always support the Electoral Commission for whatever reason. Now, when a party which is governing and supports the Electoral Commission lose the election, all of a sudden they start to raise questions about the conduct of the Electoral Commission. So this is consistent with the practice over the past how many decades that we've been practicing democracy under the Fourth Republic.
But it's interesting, however, that with this issue, the NDC and the MPP have maintained their position on the specific issue.
That's consistency.
Thank you. So when the NDC was in power, they did not want a new register. They made this clear when the Electoral Commissioner, the head of the Electoral Commission, then Charles Osei, organized that open forum for various political parties to present their position on the new voters register. The NPP actually began the agitation for a new voters register. This was when the vice presidential candidate, now vice president Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, did that presentation. Remember, it was live on television where he showed the names of some people,
foreigners and minors on the register,
suspected to be foreigners and others who were suspected to be minors. And at the time, they placed the figure at about 10%. They believed that about 10% of the names on the voters register were not Ghanaians.
And I remember Daniel Johnson Asidi Nketia, General Secretary of the NDC at the time, saying that yes, given the pictures that were shown, some of them clearly looked like minors. But his argument was that the answer to that, the solution was not compiling a new register. as far as he was concerned, any attempt to open the register up for any new compilation will lead to more minors coming onto the register. He believed that it made sense to leave the register as it was, so that those minors who were on it, with time, they would have attained maturation to vote, and therefore, with time, the register will become cleaner and better. That's his argument at the time, that he didn't think that compiling a new register was the solution. So you are absolutely right about both parties being consistent with what their respective positions have been in respect of this the electoral rule.
But Malik, let's admit it that having a credible national identification card would go a long way to end this debate about the voter register,
which is exactly what the National Identification Authority has been doing over the past how many months. Now, according to the NIA, they have registered 5.9 million Ghanaians. Now, out of the 5.9 million Ghanaians that have been registered, 5.1 million cards have been printed. And out of that 5.1 million cards that have been printed, 3.3 million, roughly about 10% of the total population. Of course, we know that they are registering Ghanaians 15 years and above. Now, 3.3 million cards have been distributed to Ghanaians as of December last year. This is according to the National Identification Authority itself. And you know that some have argued that given that we are doing this registration under the National Identification Authority, why don't we just register everybody and then strike out those who are 18 years and above? Given that the NIA is registering people who are 15 years and above, if you register everybody, you can strike out those who are 18 years and above and then issue them with cards that will enable them to vote. So you do not need to spend any money compiling a new electoral rule. Of course, we know that the NIA itself has been doing this mass registration. They are currently in the Ashanti region. They've extended the registration there from 10th to 16th because of the days that were lost in the course of the Christmas break.
Now, the Vice President actually made this exact statement that next year there will be no more debate about a new electoral roll and a new voter register, because of what you are saying, that by that time the NIA would have finished its work and a number of Ghanaians, the majority of Ghanaians, will have their Ghana cards, and the EC can just extract that data and use that to populate the voter register. He was speaking at the 88th annual convention of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community at Pomadze near Winneba on Saturday. It actually aired in the news just a few minutes ago on the 6 a.m. news. And apart from that, he was talking about how civil society organizations and passionate Ghanaians should help government in the fight against corruption. He went on to say, Malik, I remember very well, because this was on the news yesterday as well, that the new Ghana.gov platform is going to be launched, so that if you need any information at all, if you want to do any business with government, it goes through this Ghana.gov platform. If you want to request documents, you want to do any sort of business, you know, they're trying to remove the bureaucracy and the people, the human interface, reduce it to the barest minimum. Yeah.
You know, he's been advocating the digitization of the country at all levels, believing that that is one way of dealing with the human interface that tend to lead to corruption, inefficiencies, and all of that. I'm sure that's part of the reasons why they are launching this this portal. But another story which dominated the discussion in the course of since yesterday was the ambulances. And in fact, it dominated the discussion way before yesterday, right from the day when the president made an announcement, when he had the press encounter with media representatives at the Jubilee House. And in fact, even before then, you know that the minority had made a statement on the floor of the House saying that some ambulances that had been brought and had been packed at Parliament should be distributed. There were conflicting reasons given as to why those ambulances could not be distributed. Then the president gave what you would term as the reason. He said he had been approached by the Special Development Initiative Minister, who under whose ministry these ambulances were imported in the first place, who said that she was going to distribute the first batch of ambulances that had come. His advice was that if that were to happen, there would be allegations of favoritism, and therefore they should wait until all the ambulances come. He was confident that by the 6th, which is today, they would have been able to assemble all of them and then put all the fittings in place, and then he would commission them. Then they will be distributed across all the constituencies. Now, yesterday, a statement came from the Health Ministry, which itself was founded on another letter addressed to the President from the National Ambulance Service, asking that the scheduled commissioning which was to take place today should be postponed. And the reasons given were many. They range from lack of training, insurance, quite a number, digitization, quite a number of issues as to why they cannot do the commissioning which was scheduled for today. So the National Ambulance Service wrote to the President asking that the scheduled commissioning should be postponed. The Health Minister also wrote on the back of the National Ambulance Service letter asking that, well, they agree that this letter which was written by the National Ambulance Service has a basis, and therefore the President should grant them the postponement that they are requesting for, so that when they do all of the digitization and the training which is required, the commissioning can then happen.
Now, I have a message here from a procurement expert who wants to stay anonymous. He says that these ambulances have been in the country for more than 3 months. That means that if we add the initial procurement process duration to the 3 months, we are talking about 7 months period to handle recruitment, branding, digitization, training, distribution, etc. And so he believes that there are a lot more questions for the ambulance service and the health ministry to answer, which is why Professor Ahmed Zakaria actually agreed to speak to us, and we are still working the phone lines. We'll get him a bit later on in the show so that we can have that conversation and simply get a better, more clearer explanation.
Because fundamental questions have been asked as to, at the material time that the President was making the announcement that he was going to commission the ambulances by today, did he not have information as to the training? Because the letter from the National Ambulance Service says that the manufacturers could not come to conduct the training because of holidays. Was this not known to the President? Whose responsibility was it to make that information available? And if we, at the time that the President said it, we had not done the training, how was there certainty as to when the commissioning would take place to the extent that it was announced?
And how many multinationals actually would take time off at that time for a project like this, especially when we know that the President has made a key pronouncement such as this? It's just very interesting, some of the issues that are being raised, and we'll definitely speak to Prof Ahmed Zakaria to get those explanations from him. Malik, moving on.
Yes, but Professor Jampo has been exonerated, himself and Butako. Now, these are two lecturers at the University of Ghana who were accused of sex for grades in a documentary put together by the BBC. Now, a committee was set up by the university to look into the allegations that were made against them in this documentary. The committee finished its work and said that there was no evidence that these two lecturers solicited sex in return for grades. Now, however, the committee says that they engage in conduct through their utterances that were inconsistent with the values of the university, and to that extent they have been recommended to the disciplinary committee for disciplinary action in accordance with the school's regulations. Now, I had a conversation with one of the lawyers representing them at the weekend, and who explained to me, as far as they were concerned, because there was no evidence of any wrongdoing, they simply asked their client to apologize to the university because the university raised concerns about the utterances that they made, which were inconsistent with the values of the university. So they simply apologized. So this lawyer says that Professor Jampo apologized to the university for the utterances contained in the documentary which we all saw, but nonetheless, the committee is recommending that the disciplinary committee of the university should apply whatever sanctions that are required to be applied under the circumstances.
So that was it. It was an apology.
Yes, that's what the lawyer told me.
Oh, okay.
But we have to wait and see what the disciplinary committee of the university will do. To the extent that the committee recommended that action should be taken because of the utterances that were made in the documentary.
Okay, so we wait to see what happens, of course. So just to be clear, what Malik just told us is that the committee said that they did not exchange grades for sex.
Evidence of same.
Of exchange of grades for sex, but some of the utterances they made were wrong, and so they have handed them over to the disciplinary committee.
Yeah, if made a recommendation to the disciplinary committee.
Okay, for them to continue. Okay, right now, Ghana, are you ready? Fighthall is on a search to unearth great talent in cooking and is on a mission to make dreams come true. Fighthall Enriching Lives competition is the biggest TV reality cooking show. The winner of this exciting TV reality show gets a life-changing award of 100,000 Ghana cedis business investment. Yes, you heard right. 100,000 Ghana cedis. Make a date with us every Saturday from November 16 at 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. only on Joy Prime. Fighthall Enriching Lives is brought to you by Fighthall. Fighthall Enriching Lives, unearthing talent, fulfilling dreams. Now, the online news review is brought to you by Zenith Bank in your best interest and Goyle Good Energy. Goyle Efienifere promo is back with more mega rewards and instant airtime for everybody. Goyle says thank you for your continued support. Just drive to any Goyle station, buy 100 cedis worth of fuel or more, get a card, scratch it, and dial star 161 star 4645 hash. Follow the prompt or go to an app store. Download the Goyle promo app, sign up with your phone number, and receive a one-time activation code. You can win airtime, 300, 500, or 1,000 Ghana cedis worth of fuel for your loyalty. Goyle Efienifere promo terms and conditions apply. Goyle, your Hall of Fame insurance, your Hall of Fame petroleum company, pardon me. Goyle Good Energy, Goyle Yenara Yedia. Now, Zenith Bank Ghana Limited wishes all its valued customers a happy and prosperous new year. We thank you for your patronage and support throughout 2019. Thank you for banking with us, Zenith Bank, in your best interest. The BBC.com is where we want to start today. Starting on the international front, because Donald Trump is threatening sanctions if US troops exit Iraq. There's a long standoff between Iran and the United States of America. Many are calling it the World War III because there's a potential for global nuclear conflict. And MyJournalLine.com's banner story, but the banner headline is Iran offers $80 million bounty for Donald Trump's head after death of general. It also has Nigerian Diaspora Commission denounces unauthorized door of return campaign. Interesting. So there was this door of return campaign that was going around social media over the weekend. The Nigeria Diaspora Commission says that it's not sanctioned by them. How strong is Iran's military? That's also on myjournalline.com. Thank you, Ghana, Kwesi Appiah says in parting statement. CityNewsroom.com. We're building infrastructure to end double track system. Dr. Baumia speaking. The railway workers are telling the president that he has to resolve the impasse with Manganese Company to save their jobs. Security analyst Lord's recent reshuffle in the Ghana Police Service. Remember, that's the reshuffle that has affected, among others, Mamiya Tiwa Adudankwa, COP, Mamiya Tiwa Adudankwa. StarFM.com.gh. Journalists being paid to attack anti-graft colleagues. Mahama, that's the former president Mahama speaking. He's also telling the clergy, be bold to criticize nepotism and corruption. And the president, Akufo-Addo, and children with disabilities are being denied early childhood education in the eastern region. That's on starfm.com.gh. Still live on the Super Morning Show. Enjoy 99.7 FM. We'll be right back.